I'm Ellen Jaffe Jones, the author of Eat Vegan on $4 a Day and the VegCoach and the Broccoli Rep, because who else is the Broccoli Rep? I'm going to be doing something new today, using my 18 years in TV news with a couple of Emmys and the National Press Club Award to bring you some real vegan news. We have become such a polarized society, and it seems like that when I began work in television news, I would have been fired 30 years ago for doing the kinds of things that I see are actually job prerequisites now. It's actually about having an opinion. You know, the whole thing, being able to say that you are fair and balanced as a reporter, is really born out of our appearance that we are not fair and balanced. So I want to just start off by saying that I'm going to be presenting some vegan news as often as I can, and I have culled all of my news sources to get what I believe is accurate and unbiased information about the world of vegan eating and vegan living. And I think it's just really important to get this information out there because, as I have written so much in recent years, there's no money in broccoli. And when you understand that, you have to be your own investigative reporter and figure out what works for you. And because my mom, aunt, and both sisters have had breast cancer, and my aunt died of it when I was 5 in our home, all my life has been focused really about what is the truth about food. And in my reporting over the years, I've had the opportunity and privilege of interviewing many respected and esteemed doctors, registered dietitians, and people in the healthcare world who can give, at least in their opinions, very accurate assessments about what's really going on. So I bring you vegan news from my anchor desk, which is my office, in front of the many medals that I have won, or as we call them in the running world, hardware. I usually place in my age group for 5K races, sometimes 10Ks, and I have done a few half marathons and even my first full marathon back in 2010 when I was the 5th oldest female to finish the Palm Beaches Marathon. So you get plenty of protein, you get plenty of calcium on a vegan diet. In today's news, 7-time Tour de France champion Lance Armstrong may have retired from professional cycling, but the uber athlete continues to train hard and compete. Armstrong, 40, is currently preparing for the Ironman France Triathlon, which takes place June 24th, and hopes to qualify for the Ironman World Championship in Hawaii in October of 2012. Lance, who won his first triathlon at the age of 13, says switching to a mostly vegan diet has helped regulate his energy levels and improved his overall fitness. He says, quote, "It's basically whole grains, different types of beans, kale salad with creative alternatives as dressings," Lance told the Huffington Post Canada. "So I did it for 1 day, then 2 days, then I branched out and started doing it at breakfast and lunch. Oh my goodness. I still insist that I get to do whatever I want for dinner, but it has made a significant difference in just a month." Can you imagine how his performance would be enhanced if he went the whole meal deal, if he did it 3 meals a day, like moi? You know, at my first marathon, the bizarre thing was after 26 miles, I felt like I could keep going energy-wise. Now, one thing a vegan diet doesn't cure is flat feet, and my feet didn't want to keep going, but it is really amazing. At a recent 5K, as I sped up at the end, as I usually do, I was wearing my shirt, and somebody goes behind me that I pass. There goes that vegan energy again, and it really is not only noticeable to you, but probably noticeable to the people around you. And then from my Facebook page, we hear from John Suglides, who says that I helped a friend create a vegan-friendly budget plan. He realized that eating healthy vegan food, he was able to save so much money. He also understood that his health would improve. Being vegan gives you so much more energy than you realize. Vegan eaters are happier and less frustrated and certainly not aggressive, and that is a fact. Okay. And then my last bit of vegan news, which is so cool, is that for nearly 2 decades, Scott Jurek has been a dominant force and darling in the grueling and growing world of ultra running. And yet perhaps even more impressive than his extensive list of race victories and course records is the fact that he achieves these astonishing accomplishments of endurance on an entirely plant-based diet. Now, for those of you who are really big into back to nature, whether it's food or athletics, you've probably probably read the book Born to Run. And that was a book that was popular a couple years ago about a Mexican tribe that ran barefoot through the canyons of Mexico. And some people in the United States tried to get some of our best athletes to compete with them. And they wanted to bring some of the Mexican tribe members here. That didn't work out, so they imported some of our athletes, including Scott Jurek, to run against these incredible Mexican runners. And I won't spoil the book for you. It's a great read, but it just very briefly mentioned, because it was written by a New York Times reporter, that Scott Jurek on his way out the door would grab a bean burrito and really made no reference to his diet. So I and probably a lot of other folks chimed in on Scott Jurek's Facebook page and said, you really need to write a book about what you eat and how it is that you do what you do. So of course he has, and his book, which is out, called Eat and Run, My Unlikely Journey to Ultramarathon Greatness, goes on sale June 5th, just a few days, but you can pre-order it. And this is an interview that he did. One of the biggest questions I get as a runner is, what can you do to be a more efficient runner? Whether you are getting ready for your annual Memorial Day fun run or making a living running ultramarathons, what you put in your body is the most important aspect to your training. And so here are his 5 tips to optimize running. Lentils and beans. Who would have thought? Packed with protein and carbs, they are a staple in most every culture around the globe. And the other alternative is a dense pea protein powder, and you can buy these in a lot of health food stores. I don't use those very much. If I come back from a long run and I'm just really tired and I want to eat something for convenience-wise, I'll do a protein powder as a smoothie. But basically, I just get my protein from beans and greens, of course. There's absorbable protein in greens. And then number 2 on his list are grains. While some give grains a bad rap, whole grains have been consumed for thousands of years and were used as a calorie source that traveled well for nomadic tribes and warriors going into battle. Quinoa was a staple of the Incas and is technically a seed, not a grain, and has all the essential amino acids. Brown rice is another option. Number 3 on his list, tempeh. This is a super dense veggie protein and has 1 gram of fat to 3 grams of protein. It's my go-to when I feel I need a protein punch. Same for me. Number 4, kale. Kale is touted as one of the best vegetables, and we all have been told to get more greens into our diet. Steam, saute, chop it into raw, into salads. You can even throw it into your smoothie, and I do that a lot. And number 5, flax oil. Essential fatty acids are critical for all functions in the body, and most of us don't get enough nor know how to get them into our diet. I used to grind flax seeds and hemp seeds and always guessed if I was getting enough. Now I use an omega-369 oil that takes the guesswork out of my diet. I add it to smoothies, cereal, and salads. Now, adding oil to food is somewhat controversial. There are the low-fat, plant-based diet doctors who say, no, don't add any oil to your food. We don't need it. And especially if you already have progressing heart disease, it's not, Dr. Caldwell-Esselstyn in particular has had great success in reversing heart disease by going to a totally low-fat, plant-based diet. So adding oil would not be on the agenda of some of the low-fat, plant-based doctors. However, some more athletes are coming forward, like Scott Jurek, and saying we do need some added oils for our brain function, and if you have healthy arteries, then it's probably okay to add nut seeds and some added oils. So it's an area of controversy. I am still studying this, and I will give you the reports as they come out. And, let's see, we have to talk about First Lady Michelle Obama appearing on the Jon Stewart show. She discussed her first ever book called American Grown, the story of the White House kitchen garden and gardens across America. Well, I saw the interview, and it was pretty amazing. She really was touching on how important it is to get kids involved in gardens. And this is something I did when my kids were very young, 20 years ago. We always had an organic garden, and it was so cool to let them just go out and pick the cherry tomatoes, pop them into their mouth, and pick kale. I love kale. And my kids were the only ones at the age of 3 when we went on a field trip. The farmer would hold up the green leafy thing and go to all the nursery school kids, what's this? And my kids would go, kale. because they knew the difference between kale and spinach. And the farmer said, your kids are the only ones who ever knew that. But all kids can know this if you just have a simple garden. And I thought it was really cool that Michelle Obama is like, that's the main point that she was trying to make from her book, is that if you get kids involved in the touching and the feeling and the smelling, then they do come to love vegetables. It's just not a big deal if this is a part of their life. And then my final food story, we can't leave without mentioning this. Michelle's doing some great work, but Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine has asked President Barack Obama to stop chowing down on hot dogs in front of news cameras. In a petition that they filed just a few weeks ago, PCRM asked the White House to issue an executive order banning stage photo opportunities that show the president, the first family, the vice president, and members of the president's cabinet eating unhealthy foods, including processed meats that can cause cancer and obesity. The White House would never set up a photo op showing the president buying cigarettes, so why is it okay for him to be eating a hot dog? Says PCRM Nutrition Education Director Susan Levin. She says, quote, processed meats like hot dogs kill more Americans each year than tobacco does, and they cost taxpayers billions of dollars in health care. As role models to millions of Americans, the president has a responsibility to watch what he eats in public. And speaking of that, this morning talk radio was filled with venom from talk show hosts who say that Mayor Bloomberg from New York has no right to be controlling the size of sodas. Well, in the spirit of just reporting the facts calmly, preventable diseases are not sustainable. They just aren't. And we can't keep allowing the access and the addictive foods to be in the hands of so many, because ultimately it's you and I who end up paying for those health care costs. So kudos to Mayor Bloomberg. Keep doing the same great work and keep supporting the work of broccoli and vegetables and produce so that the future of our kids, which is rapidly being derailed by obesity, can get on a different track. It's a small drop in the bucket trying to control the size of sodas, but we need to start somewhere. And I really commend him for taking a stand and trying to get this information out there, because it has to start somewhere. Otherwise, it really will be just a survival of the fittest. And I think that we need to do better, especially for our children. I'm Ellen Jaffe Jones, the author of Eat Vegan on $4 a Day, the VegCoach, and the Broccoli Rep, because who else is the Broccoli Rep? This has been today's edition of Vegan News.